um, oh, fantastic. You're recording. Thank you. Thanks for everybody for being on time and making yourselves available today. You are in for an absolute treat. I hope you've got pen and paper handy. I think I prompted all of you, the ones I spoke to on the phone, to make sure you got a pen and paper handy because this is 90 minutes of professional development. This is all about you and the tools and strategies that you can take away. Cecilia has been doing amazing work with these masterclasses in bringing together the latest knowledge, resources, experts in this space and consolidating this into amazing 90 minutes of training. If you haven't met Cecilia before, she brings with her a wealth of knowledge that spans a number of years with a number of large corporate organizations across something like 14 different countries. And she's often in demand, asked to travel. So we're very lucky the technology that we have to be able to have Cecilia come to us all the way from Vancouver in Canada and has put together an amazing program. So none of you will have seen any of this content before. It's brand new and it is really following on some of the great work that Cecilia has already delivered. All right, Cecilia, I'm going to hand back over to you, but I'll be here in the background if you need me.
Thanks. Thank you, Barb, for that great introduction. And I'm so happy to see all of you. It's my pleasure to present this content to you. With the number of registrations we got for this, it's telling me that this is a topic that's very important to you, and it's something that is in your space right now. So the inspiration for this was a client that I worked with, and we designed this particular workshop, a one-day workshop, and it was using a diagnostic tool, and we were looking at how to navigate complex situations using this tool. And when Barb and I talked about this masterclass, I teased out the best of the content, and I have to say, I don't want to toot my own horn, but I feel like this is the best masterclass I've designed to date. It has some really solid content that I'll be sharing with you today. I drew upon a model that I used about 10 years ago in navigating difficult relationships. So I gave it a 2026 lens. So hang on and just be open to receiving this really interesting information. And I speak so passionately about it because as I was designing it, I was feeling very encouraged and inspired myself. So this is our presentation today. We are going to be engaged for 90 minutes on advanced communication strategies for difficult people and complex dynamics. And I get the sense that you responded because you are dealing with challenging dynamics, you're dealing with different personalities. And I want to emphasize that Barb has a masterclass coming up that is specifically on difficult people. This one is on advanced communication strategies. This is where you have control of what you get to say, how you say it, and the state in which how you deliver your communication. So to kick us off, I know we have some people who are new to our masterclasses. If you could leave your cameras on, that would be great. I can still see your engagement, and it just keeps me motivated as I talk for the next 90 minutes. And please share with us your comments. We love to hear from you, and I'm going to invite your engagement throughout. And we all know that we are easily distracted, and we are probably multitasking. And I'm not unreasonable in asking you to stop. I know that we all do it. I do it myself. But if you could reduce your multitasking or close some of the tabs on your computer or on your devices, that would help you. I want to make sure you don't miss out on some key content here. Barb mentioned a notebook and pen. I'm very old-fashioned. I have one of these. And I'm going to be asking for you to take notes as well as participate in a couple of exercises we'll be taking part in. I would reserve some questions and comments at the end where we turn the recording off, and feel free to stay behind as well. Barb and I would love to have a chat with you when the 90-minute session is over. And just for the sake of helping us track attendance, because we will be sending you the resource materials, Barb will be checking with you your name. If we don't have your full name, we don't know the email address that you registered on, she'll check with you. It's just so that we can send the information to the right people after the session. And just a little warning, our sessions are very interactive, they're very fun, and we also give away a prize at the end. Today, we're giving away this very famous book. It's been around for a long time, but this is the third edition. It's called Difficult Conversations, How to Discuss What Matters Most. And as you see, I referenced it in the design, and I have a fresh new copy to send to whoever is the winner today. I would also like you to just take a note here before I jump into the content. And that is Barb's Masterclass is in about 2 weeks' time on April 22nd, Australia time. So those of you who are in this part of the world, Michael, then it will be April 21st. This is Barb's most popular masterclass, or one of her most popular. It's really about dealing with the personalities. For my session today, it's about the strategic communication strategies. Here, she's going to be talking about the dark personalities, the narcissists, the dare I say, psychopaths and micromanagers. I'm really sorry if you're dealing with a psychopath in your workplace, but she will work with you on how to handle those tough conversations, how to spot those toxic behaviors, and you can just scan that code. We're having some problems with our website right now, so that's why we have these codes so that you can easily access the page. Highly recommend it. And then I want to just take a couple minutes to talk about the Hinwood Institute, because I always acknowledge the people who came before us. And Michael and Barb really put their hearts into starting the Hinwood Institute, founding the Institute back in 2021 in legacy of Dr. John Hinwood's work, body of work on stress management. He's passed away, and I continue to just really acknowledge how he was the inspiration for this where we are today. And a lot of the work that the early work on stress management, and I'll share with you a little bit about Barb's masterclass from Smash to Smashing It. A lot of it was based on Dr. John Hinwood's work. Hinwood Institute today is there. You can see it's Barb and me in Phuket last year. And, we are just a couple of crazy gals, as Barb liked to call us. We're a couple of Gen Xers. We really enjoy our work. We have a lot of energy, and we are committed to the human side of work. We're also very okay with working in the difficult aspects of the workplace, the difficult, awkward, challenging, uncomfortable aspects. Topics such as leading change, difficult relationships, resolving conflict, challenging conversations, or team dysfunctions. This is the area where Barb and I shine, and we're both certified workplace mediators. We're very comfortable dealing with conflict. And in a nutshell, if you get to know us, we're very imperfect. We're unabashed. We both bring a lot of work experience. Barb in Australia, together combined, we bring over 50 years of real concrete work and life experience. And one of our top values, our shared value, is that we're very passionate about supporting others. Okay, our objectives today. I want to make sure that we spend plenty of time, that we give quality time to what we'll be covering. So something called to you in the email promotion that you received, either a colleague forwarded to you or you're on a mailing list. So something called to you. And I want to know which one it is that calls to you more. One of our objectives is to recognize the internal triggers that make interactions difficult to manage. So there's something in you, something that's triggering you. And this is the first step to being conflict capable. We also want to have the tools to be able to diagnose those complex dynamics, and so that you can respond more strategically and more professionally. We also have some frameworks for you to be able to master your calm authority and to be able to respond with strategic neutrality. We, as usual, we have a lot of practical tools. We have some boundary-based language. We have some scripts for you to share, for you to take away. And these scripts and these phrases that you may use in different situations are designed to ensure that you preserve the working relationship and also make your stance be known and maintain professionalism. And then we have a simple diagnostic for you to determine whether you're going to engage, whether you're going to redirect or disengage from those situations, those complex, difficult situations, because we don't want to enable bad behavior. So if you were to look at these 5 objectives, please tell me, or just make a note of it for yourself, which one feels most pertinent for you right now? You may say all of them, but which one really jumps out at you as something that you really want to have some takeaways? Just so I can see. Okay, I can see some in the chat. Let me open up my chat. Okay, I can see chat. Number 5, number 4. Yeah, some scripts. Okay, great. Thank you for that. We're going to talk about our triggers because that was number 1. We're going to start off with 1. Okay, good. Somebody said 1. Because understanding our triggers is really the foundation of being able to do this strategically and to do this with skill. So I'm going to kick us off with a poll. And for this poll, I'm going to ask you to select which dynamic triggers you the most. Let me start the poll. Okay, here we go. I'm going to launch the poll. So in a minute, going to ask you to select.
Oh
Is
my
it working,
gosh.
Barb?
Yeah, it is. That is so clever. Oh, we need the QR code. So it's come up. I don't know if this is coming up because I'm a co-host. It's showing me the results, but it's not. Oh, yep, people have got the QR code, obviously.
Okay.
So there we go. I'm seeing some polls coming in. So it must be working. Thanks,
Okay.
everyone.
Yeah, some of you may say all of them, but there's one that probably bothers you more than the others. Okay. Can you see the results, Barb? I don't know if everyone else can. When I end the poll, everyone will be able to see. Okay, we're getting close. All right, thank you. I'm going to end the poll and we're going to see
I
let's
was
see
on
the
mute. I was
results.
talking. Sorry. There's only one person that hasn't done it. Who are you?
All right, can you all see the results here?
I'm not on your screen. I can't, Cecilia.
Can you all see?
Yeah,
Can
Anthony's
everyone
got his
see?
thumbs up. Yeah,
Okay,
so
great,
people can
great.
see it.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay,
cool.
so from what I could see, someone who evades responsibility, that's the top one, and being they're all pretty evenly distributed. And there's, 20, 22 of you here, and each one of you has a different trigger. So I'm going to ask you to pause just for a couple of considerations right now. And something that may trigger you may not trigger the next person. And this trigger is unique to you. I'm going to ask you to just make a note of that as we continue with the content, and we'll come back to it. I mean, these are all unattractive behaviors. I mean, I don't know anyone who wants to be ignored or micromanaged, but sometimes it doesn't bother me. And there are times when it does really trigger me. So we're going to look at what's underneath that. And that's why we're here today, so that you have control. What we want to do is not have the control be on the other side, because all of these are based on someone else treating you. We want to flip it so that you are in control. All right, let's move on. I want to take it at a a little bit of a higher level, let's, just go up to have a helicopter view. Earlier this year, I attended a conference on key leadership skills in 2026. They identified 4 superpowers. We're going to be covering one of them today, and it's probably no surprise that there are critical skills that we need to perform in 2026. Critical thinking, we need to have AI skills, we need to have resilience, all of these. And this company surveyed 180 organizations, and their 28,000 C-suite leaders said that this one skill is one of the most important, and they call it relationship fluency. Relationship fluency. So that's a pretty big pillar. If you think about relationship fluency, underneath it is emotional intelligence, it's resilience, it's the ability to build trust quickly, it's the ability to master conflict. And conflict is rife. We need to know how to navigate conflict so that we can transmute it into performance. As a leader, we also need to create psychologically safe environments for people to perform. There's a lot that is in demand here. It's also the ability to be able to read a room and then adapt our communication accordingly. Relationship fluency is also the ability to bring diverse minds together, because more than ever, we need to innovate. So this conference was really challenging because they're talking about this world that is so volatile, that is rapidly changing, and that we need to make ourselves AI proof. So out of all this, it's actually making me really stressed out. And I thought, how do I take this information and just distill it into something that is meaningful? And that's one of the reasons behind this masterclass. And also to note that while it is a big topic, we can take one chunk at a time. Today, we're looking at dealing with conflict and how to have leadership conversations. And just note that relationship fluency, if you can master this, it's actually a performance multiplier. We really need relationships more than ever. And it's one of those skills that will really set you apart in a world that is continuing to be more automated and more AI dependent. So that's the high level. That's the helicopter view. Let's come down a little bit. And I want to talk about our session today. Note that with this view of relationship fluency, we're actually being strategic. We're exploring our content through this lens. So when I talk about advanced communication, it's not about being right or putting the other person in their place. Advanced communication is not knowing the exact right thing to say at the right time. It's more about being able to navigate tension and to have those conversations that will build the trust, will uphold the standards you have in your workplace, and also to strengthen the relationship. Even if the person you're dealing with is difficult, you need to work with them. That's why you came to this session. And that's why we want to be strategic versus tactical. Of course, we're going to be sharing with you some practical tools you can apply. But I want you to remember that we're really asking you to step back and be able to stay grounded and also have the ability to manage this complexity. Difficult conversations are going to be a part of it. Like it or not, you're going to be engaging in a lot of difficult conversations. But note that they are here to help you shape trust. You can use it to your advantage. Use them to build trust, your credibility, your influence, and the quality of relationship over time. So, in a nutshell, relationship fluency is the strategic ability to navigate these complex situations and allow you to protect the quality of the work and relationship. Barb and I talk a lot about being conflict capable. And I don't know, I haven't met anyone who raises their hand and says, I love conflict. I have yet to meet this person. I know people who are more capable at it, but majority of the people that I work with say they do not like it. And sadly and unfortunately, it is a part of life. There will always be conflict if you're working with people where you're leading and you're relating with them. because we are so different. We have different perspectives, needs, and values. So conflict is a part of work. And I feel like we need to be better trained. We need to be better informed in conflict. I may also be speaking to a group that is already well trained. Some of you even train on conflict. So I just want to reinforce some of the things that you're already doing well. And I'd like to introduce a couple of new things that you could add to your tool belt with regards to handling conflict. And for those of you who are uncomfortable, still not sure how to get started, or it's just something you don't want to deal with, that is okay. You're going to walk away with some tools here today, and you are going to be a little bit more confident moving forward. So I'm going to ask you to just make that an objective. To begin, we want to understand our triggers. To be conflict capable, you want to know what triggers you. And the term I'm going to be using today is called hot buttons. I think many of you, all of you are familiar with this term. And hot buttons are really situations or behaviors in others. These are behaviors in others that tend to frustrate or irritate us enough. And that will cause us to overreact in ways we might not if we had cooler heads. So just note this. We will overreact when we are not in a calm and grounded space. So Barb is going to talk about dealing with difficult people. I'm going to be talking about those triggers, those behaviors. And if you think about the term hot buttons, there are other terms out there like that. There's fly off the handle, right? There's blowing off steam, seeing red. There's we say make my blood boil, road rage. So these are heated states. And if you think about it, it's not comfortable, right? Even as I'm talking about it, I'm feeling a little anxious myself because those are not great positions to be in. And when you see someone like that, you know that they're under a lot of pressure. What we want to do is we want to ensure that we have cooler heads, that we're dealing it with the situation with a calm, collected state. And also, we want which part of our brain do we want to manage the show? We want the prefrontal cortex to be leading. This part that is logical, that is rational, that is able to formulate thoughts. We don't want the reptilian brain to take over. And when we're threatened, that is what happens. So certain behaviors trigger our reactions because they threaten different psychological needs, such as respect, autonomy, or connection. And Barb covers this beautifully in her masterclass, from smash to smashing it. I don't know if anyone here has attended that. We haven't run one so far this year. And if you're interested, just pop that in the chat, because Barb and I are talking about scheduling one for later this year, because it calls to directly this phenomenon. When we get triggered, how do we manage our psychological needs? Today, we're not threatened physically, but we're threatened a lot psychologically. And we refer to this in our previous masterclass, kind words for tough talks. And we reference the SCARF model by David Rock. And the SCARF model is we're threatened by status, certainty, autonomy, relational and fairness. So we have the cheat sheet here from that masterclass. Barb or Dame can pop it in the chat for you to download. And if you're interested, good, I'm seeing that. Yes, then we'll schedule it because it is very useful. It's about managing your emotional state. And it's under one of our pillars of workplace well-being. So note that we're not triggered by the same behaviors. Your answer in the poll earlier is different from the others here today. We have 20 plus people here. We are triggered by different things. So those are all annoying behaviors, but the key here is, why does one irk you more than the others? And we'll get to the root of that. We're going to dive into the content. So the next slide, I'm going to ask you to pull out your notebook. And if you don't have a notebook, you can just review and do it in your head. But you will see that there is a hot button. There are 8 behaviors, 8 that are unattractive behavior, someone who's unreliable, someone who's micromanages, someone who's abrasive. And then we have the descriptions in the right column. So I'm going to ask you to quickly, we're going to take only 2 minutes, just match the hot button to the description. Some are a little obvious, like micromanaging. That one you should get right away. Okay, another minute. So as you read these, I'd like you to pay attention to which one falls to you. Which one do you feel annoyed by just reading it? Okay, 20 more seconds. Okay, I'm going to show you the answers in a minute. Here we go. All right. So let's see, you can match your answers. Who got all of them? I don't know if anyone got all of them. If you got most of them, that's great. That's not the purpose of today here. It's just to have some distinctions between being over analytical or abrasive. Okay. Yeah, Stephen got all of them. Anthony, way to go. You know your hot buttons. So that's great. You recognize bad behavior. And I'm going to share with you why we get triggered. And I want to just preface it with, I'm not a psychologist. We're not here to analyze people. And if you've been in the workplace long enough, you know what triggers you and you understand human behavior. But I'm going to share with you 4 reasons why we get triggered. And this is to get to the bottom of bad behavior and to note that knowing a fuller range of why we get triggered not only helps us to navigate better with the world, but it just makes us a little bit more compassionate and not blame everything on the outside. One of the design objectives for this masterclass is that we want you to have the locus of control. If everything is happening to you on the outside and you're constantly reacting to it, you don't have an internal locus of control. What we want to do is bring that control into your court so that you are in a more masterful position in managing these situations. So the first reason why we get triggered is that it challenges that particular behavior, challenges one of our core values. And we all have our hierarchy of values, the things that matter the most to us. And they change over time, but right now, integrity, respect, fairness, or collaboration, these are very important to you. So when any one of these values is challenged, our reaction may be strong. And this is where I encourage people to do a values inventory. This is very helpful in trying to understand what motivates your behavior. When you understand what motivates yours, then you will have a more empathetic view as to what motivates others. So if you're working as a team leader, it would be really helpful to do a values inventory to see what people's hierarchy of values are. And when one of these values is challenged, say, for example, you value connection. And if somebody is dismissive or is unreliable, it can feel really painful. It can hurt a certain wound in you. So when something happens and you feel triggered, you might ask yourself, what value of mine feels challenged right now? So it could be a value. The second reason why we get triggered, and this is probably not new information for you, is that your capacity has reached out its max. It's sometimes not about the behavior, it's about the state that you are in. And if you are already at your maximum capacity, you're under pressure, you're stretched, you're tired, you're hungry, you're dealing with a lot of things outside of work, then a behavior can really trigger a strong reaction in you. And if you think about on a given day when you're grounded, when you're feeling resourceful, you love the world. If somebody cuts you off in traffic, you go, yeah, okay, off you go. But if you are tense, you are running late, you have a lot of deadlines to meet, then that person cutting you off is going to trigger an explosive reaction in you. Same thing with a micromanaging manager. It's always going to be annoying to have a micromanager breathing down your neck. But if you're feeling confident, you're feeling happy about yourself, fine. It won't bother you as much as on a day when you are overwhelmed, when you're stressed. Then that could be what we call the straw that broke the camel's back. Just note, what is your emotional margin? How full is your bucket? The next one, this one, and I want to emphasize, I'm not a psychologist. And this is the part where we can recognize that we are driven by our values and our history. So there are certain patterns that we bring into the workplace. Earlier experiences, they shape what feels safe, what feels unsafe, respectful, or dismissive, or threatening. So that's why people can have very different reactions to the same behavior. And if you'll note that this is indicative of how you learned to deal with conflict earlier on. On that same note, it could be that the person worked in a previous workplace that was volatile, that was very toxic, and that is going to trigger strong responses as well. So note that we're also driven by what we had previously been exposed to. We show up in a certain way, but we're carrying with us a lot of things that are invisible, things you cannot see. And then the last one, and I want to add that I'm not saying that it's you, but a lot of times, when we see something on the outside and it bothers us, it touches something inside of us, and that's why we call it the mirror effect. Note that with bad behaviors, we respond. It could be it's something that it clashes with our standards and our values as a number one, or it's something that we work really hard to manage and that we display, that we focus on improving ourselves. So for example, one of my triggers is when someone is unreliable, if they show up late, or if they give a half-ass effort, they don't put their all into it. It triggers me because I work so hard. I'm not a structured person, and I work extra hard at being on time and doing more and delivering more. So when somebody does that, it triggers something in me. And also, just so you know, that the mirror effect is the same for attractive behaviors. If you see somebody who is kind, someone who's generous, it probably reflects something in you as well. So it's saying that whatever I see, it's something that I care strongly about. And that is why there is a more intense reaction. So just going to let you sit with that for a moment and think about the last time you were triggered. Somebody just got you to react, and you reacted in a way that you would not have if you had a calmer, cooler head. So which one do you think it is? Did they touch a core value? Was it because you were at capacity? Could it be it was an early pattern, or was it a mirror effect? So having an understanding of why we get triggered is the first step. And then now I'm going to talk about the hot buttons, each one. So I'm going to talk about each one very briefly, and don't worry about taking all the notes. I am going to send you a very detailed summary sheet. And this summary sheet includes the hot button, why it triggers you, what are some ways to deal with it, and also what kind of people are more triggered by this hot button? Barb, you said these come up in meditations too. Do you want to just speak to that?
Mediations.
Oh, mediations. Yes.
You're not the first person to get that word confused.
Yes, yes, yes. You're right. Absolutely right. And I know we have a couple of experts here who know that. Yes. Okay. Let's talk about the first one. And for this, I'd like you to pull out your notebook and just write the hot button, write out the name of the hot button, and then just get a sense as I describe it if this triggers you. And I'm going to ask you to create two columns. The two columns, one is I'd like to know how much is this showing up in your life right now? So from a scale of 1 to 10, 1 is not present. And 10 is you are facing it every day. Like it is very prominent. So I want you to give that scale rating. And then the next rating, the second column is how triggered are you? It may show up in your life, but you're not that triggered. So again, the scale is 1 to 10. 1 is you're not triggered at all. Doesn't bother you at all. And 10 is it really riles you up. It is explosive for you because that's really good information for us to work with. The first one is abrasive. And abrasive is also someone who is arrogant, sarcastic, and abrupt. And I don't know about you, I really don't like sarcastic, and it's just not a good personality, not a great behavior to deal with. But if I'm in a good place, it doesn't bother me. It just rolls off my back. So think about the person who is abrasive, who demonstrates this behavior. I'd like you to think about what could be the cause. And I'm going to be sharing this with you for every hot button because I'd like you to think about this person as someone who is showing up at work, who is dealing with their troubles, their complex challenges. And this is showing up in this behavior. So they could be under a lot of pressure. They don't have they don't have tools to regulate themselves. They're impatient. They have a highly results-driven style, and they just lack awareness, limited awareness of the impact of their behavior. So just consider this. And how do you deal with such behavior? The tool here is just to be direct. Calmly call out the tone. I'm happy to discuss this, but not in that tone. Call it out, set your boundaries, and do not reward this type of behavior by becoming accommodating, because now you're enabling sarcasm or arrogance. A couple of other phrases you can use is I'm open to the topic, but not that tone. And I want to understand you, but not like this. And a couple more things I want to add. Why does it trigger you? It triggers you because sometimes it could feel like a direct attack on your competence or dignity. And for people who are more sensitive to this type of behavior, they're the ones who highly value kindness and social harmony. So someone who is abrasive, who is sarcastic, it can feel like they're just not being decent human beings. So just going to ask you to make a note of this, score on how present it is in your life, and then give a number to how much this triggers you from 1 to 10. I'm going to move on. Got quite a few more to cover. Aloof. This one is isolated and not seeking input, and they're really hard to approach. They make it really hard to get through to them. I deal with a couple of these personalities in my personal life, and it's a struggle because I know that it's not personal. It's because they are not comfortable with their emotions. They tend to avoid conflict. They have very low trust in people, and they tend to just isolate when they're under stress. They also could be a habit of self-protection through distance. So the aloof personality or the aloof behaviors, you got to give them space and don't chase. You want to consistently be follow through on your word and give them low pressure opportunities to build trust. This is the one where you want to slow down and just be consistent. And the trust building techniques that we shared in a previous masterclass are very useful here. You want to make sure you reduce pressure and increase clarity. At the workplace, you might say, I'd value your view on this. Even a brief response would help. And focus on reliable communication rhythms rather than try to force a friendship, trying to force warmth. For people like myself who are very socially oriented, relationships mean a lot. If somebody is aloof, it can trigger me because it feels like I do not have their approval. And I will work extra hard to try to force it. So the key here is to not force it. And why would it trigger you? Because it creates a sense of exclusion or being ignored. And the brain can actually process that as a threat. And it feels similar to physical pain. This is according to the SCARF model. And people who are more sensitive to this are those who have a high need for inclusion and validation. Ding, 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 that's me. So also, if you have experienced the silent treatment in the past, an aloof coworker could trigger a fear of abandonment or a feeling undervalued. Okay, so pause for a moment and think about how present is this behavior in your life right now? And then how much does this bother you on a scale of 1 to 10? Okay, next behavior, hostile. So before I get into this, I hope that this is not happening to you. We've addressed this in a previous masterclass. And if this is showing up on a regular basis in your workplace, then something has to be done because this is not okay. In the 90s, this was acceptable. It happened all the time when I was working, but today it is not. And this is where you need HR intervention. This is when somebody is behaving in a way that is clearly unacceptable in the workplace, losing their temper, getting angry, yelling. So get some support if this is happening. But I'm talking about those incidences where it happens and it's unexpected. It's not happening on a regular basis. So as you can imagine, as you can see this character from, what is that movie? That Pixar movie. This is anger. I mean, this is not a comfortable place to be in. It's very uncomfortable. This person is dealing with high levels of stress. They're inside out, thank you. They are threatened. They are cornered, right? Somebody who's reacting like this, and they really have poor emotional regulation and just a really poor learned habit of using force to gain control. This one is tricky because Barb will actually cover this. To manage this behavior, it's very hard in the moment when you're feeling threatened. And you must stay calm. You must regulate yourself. You must manage your own nervous system. And you got to slow the pace. And you got to be able to set your boundaries. I'm not going to engage if this continues. We will continue this when we're both calm, or this conversation is just not productive right now. And why it triggers, there's no surprise. It's actually signaling an immediate physical or emotional threat. And it's causing what we call an amygdala hijack. And those who are more sensitive are those who are more attuned to tension. They have a low tolerance for aggression. I don't think anyone has a good tolerance for aggression. Nobody likes aggressive behavior. But if you have an especially low tolerance, which is myself, this can be very triggering. And also, people who have had similar experiences in the past and they're unresolved can be triggered. So I'm going to ask you to pause for a moment and write out the scale of how frequent this is happening to you, how present this is in your life, and then how much it triggers you on a scale of 1 to 10. Yeah, thanks, Barb. Slowing the pace is key. And also knowing to walk away if it's unsafe. Absolutely walk away. Okay, the next one is micromanaging. And micromanaging is the need to constantly monitor check the work of others. This has come up quite a lot in our master classes, and it will be covered again in a couple of weeks. So this is also not an attractive behavior. And it's driven by Anxiety, someone who's under a lot of pressure for accountability, they're afraid of making mistakes, or they have a strong need for certainty and control. So the way to handle this is to clarify expectations, agree on checkpoints, decision rights, and what good oversight looks like, and clarify where autonomy is expected. I'm happy to keep you updated. It would help to align on which decisions you want brought back and which I should run with. Be clear on those expectations and avoid becoming defensive. Why does it trigger? Wow, it triggers us because it feels like we're not trusted. It feels like our autonomy is taken away and that we are constantly being second guessed. And the people who are more sensitive are those who value independence and expertise. So all of you here are professionals. You are professional working people. So for those who are self-reliant, a micromanager is sending a signal that's saying, I don't think you can do this right. So it's just good to flip it and to know where it comes from their perspective. So again, just make a note of how present it is in your workplace and how much it triggers you. Okay, next one, over analytical. So this one is someone who is focused on perfectionism, focusing too much on minor issues. And they are dealing with high levels of self-criticism. They're dealing with risk aversion, fear of getting it wrong, and the need for uncertainty. They have a preference for precision before action, which leads to analysis paralysis. So the action here is to narrow the conversation, make them identify what are the
The
two or
last
three
woman
most
in
important.
Manhattan asked me for a favor. Oh, sure.
If we could
Sure.
just get hi, Prue. So narrow the conversation to what are two or three most important things we need to focus on right now. And
Never talk to me.
it can feel like momentum is being stalled, trust is being withheld. So this is not a great behavior to deal with. Why does it trigger us? Because it feels like trust is taken away and there's a roadblock to progress. And those who are more sensitive to this are action-oriented people who want to move on, who are very visionary, who want to just get things moving. The next one is self-centered. And I don't know if any of you know Blanche from Golden Girls. I've been watching Golden Girls quite a bit lately. Bit of nostalgia. Blanche is definitely self-centered, but she has a good heart. And you'll notice in her behavior, it's always about me, me, me. And in this instance, the behavior is not only are they self-absorbed, they think that everything they say is right. And it can be driven by just a low awareness of their impact. There's a lot of competition for them to perform, and it's a form of self-protection as well, and also a habit of prioritizing their needs over others. So this one is to set boundaries and be clear about the limits and shared expectations. Why does it trigger? It can feel unfair. It can feel one-sided and exhausting when people are constantly focusing on their outcomes over yours. They're prioritizing their needs over yours. And for those who get triggered, the more people who are more sensitive to this are those who prioritize collaboration, generosity, team spirit, and they are very focused on fairness. So if you see someone who is tooting their own horn and promoting and not giving credit to others, it can really feel like a betrayal. So I want you to just make a note of this one. Does this trigger you? Is this present? How present is this in your world right now? Okay, the next one we have is unappreciative. Unappreciative are those people who do not give credit. They're very cheap with giving out praise, and they feel like you need to not giving credit is a way to motivate. It is really hard to deal with this behavior. It may be driven by just a lack of total awareness, their inability to know what others need. And this is the lack of empathy part that we talk about. It could also be a sense of entitlement that they have. They could be under a lot of stress, narrow task focus, or just in general, lack of awareness. The way to deal with this is ask, request for clear feedback. Do you have channels in place where you can get the feedback that you need through processes? But also know that asking is one thing, but don't expect it from someone who has this kind of behavior. Find ways to validate yourself. Do not rely on their informal appreciation for you to sustain motivation. But however, it's in your place to assert yourself. So when it really matters, you can communicate your needs. I would appreciate acknowledgement of the extra work that went into this. Now, we all know why it triggers. It feels like you're taken for granted, you're feeling unseen, and you're just not acknowledged for the work. That can be very demotivating. And those who are more sensitive would be those who are highly invested, very focused on contribution, and also motivated by acknowledgement and reciprocity. The last one here is reliable. Sorry, unreliable. The unreliable behavior is they cannot be consistently counted on, and there's a lot of driving forces behind this type of behavior. It could be that they're just plainly disorganized. They don't have any skills. They tend to avoid or overcommit. They don't have planning skills, and they have a discomfort. They have a problem saying no. There's a lot of people-pleasing characteristics here. So the way to manage this is to confirm agreements in writing, clarify the ownership, build in some check-in points, and just to note that this behavior triggers you because it creates uncertainty, it creates extra workload. And if someone is consistently late or absent, it could feel like disrespect. And I'll speak personally, this one really triggers me because, as I said earlier, I have certain standards when it comes to responding to people, when it comes to replying and following through on my word. And when somebody does not do the same, to me, it feels like disrespect. And there are situations where I know that they are reliable with others, but they're not reliable to me. So that makes me feel excluded as well. So people who are more sensitive to this are those who value integrity, dependability, structure, and follow through. So if you pride yourself on being on someone who follows through on your word, then this kind of behavior feels like they're showing a lack of respect for your time and your common goals. So those are the 8 hot buttons. I went through those fairly quickly because you're going to receive the summary sheet, so you'll have all of this. But I just want to talk through each one quickly so that you understand they trigger different emotions and reactions in you. So finish up your score. And I like for you to tally in each column which one has the high scores. And for those that trigger you the most, probably 8 and above, I like you to circle the top 3 because this is information for you. This is information. This is giving you the opportunity to address those triggers. And then we're going to jump into what we're going to do after knowing about these triggers, which is our leadership conversations. But if you could pop into the chat and let me know which ones trigger you the most. Like I said, there's a difference between the ones that show up in your work and the ones that are top. Okay, good. You can see those. That's great. Well, it's great because you have this information. Okay, those are high numbers. So I just want you to note these behaviors at the moment, and we're going to talk about some strategies, some ways to deal with them. But remember, we are being strategic about this. We're talking about how to preserve the relationship, how to change the dynamics, because this is behavior that's coming from another person. You can't change their behaviors. You can only change your reactions. And this is where the advanced part comes in. Okay, thank you. Yeah, okay. Those are not great situations to be in, but we are going to work on the next steps and how you are able to navigate these complex situations is through leadership conversations. And why leadership conversations? What's the difference? A leadership conversation is one where you have to step forward. These require courage, requires you to be uncomfortable. And I referred to Susan Scott in our last masterclass. She is the author of Fierce Conversations. I love her work because she's got a framework on how to have these conversations, how to prepare for them. And she says that, our work, our relationships, and our lives succeed or fail one conversation at a time. And while no single conversation is guaranteed to transform a relationship or a company or your career, any single conversation can. So one conversation leads to the next one. And treat this one conversation as a very important one. It may not resolve all the issues, but it will lead to the next one. I'm just looking at the chat here and all the hot buttons, and I want to make sure you attend Barb's masterclass in a couple of weeks. She will talk about some strategies, some really practical ways to deal with all of these behaviors. And here I'm going to focus on the communication pieces, the phrases that you can use, how you can de-escalate a high conflict situation. Are you ready? All right, so Susan Scott's work is great if you want to look up Fierce Conversations, and I am more than happy to share the tools as well if ever you want to reach out and look at her framework for how to prepare for these conversations. What we're going to focus on here today is a framework called POISE. And the POISE framework, it's just 5 steps. And then I'm going to get into the conversation pieces. So we're going to talk about this over and over again, which is to pause and regulate. The first step to handling any of the hot buttons, anything that is uncomfortable, is to make sure that you are in a regulated state, that your emotional state is calm and that you are regulated. This requires taking a deep breath. This requires pausing. And please do not underestimate the power of the pause. This is going to come up again for the rest of the masterclass on the power you have when you pause, when you are silent. So this first step is to settle your breath, make sure that you're managing your tone, your facial expression, and use the power of the pause. If you're caught off guard, if somebody says something to you that is out of the blue, of course you would react, but come back to the pause and come back to the breath. And this is where Barb, the Smash to Smashing It masterclass, is excellent in giving you all these regulation tools. The next one in POISE is to observe the dynamic. Once you are in a calm state, then you're able to observe. If you're not calm, if you're just seeing red, you're not able to notice what is happening in the environment. What is the other person's pattern, tone, and pressure? You're not able to see that if you don't have the first step. Once you are able to use your senses, remember, we use our senses. Our 5 senses are connected to our prefrontal cortex. The senses allow us to make rational decisions in that moment. But when there is a threat, when the amygdala has been hijacked, we cannot access this information. We go into a fight, flight, or freeze mode. And that is when our emotional or ancient brain has taken over. So we want to make sure the first step, P, allows us to pause, regulate, and then observe. And the next one is to identify the hot button. Once you're able to do that, what is driving their behavior? Now you are in control. You have far more control than you realize. And also, when you recognize what is being activated in you, you're already taking away, you're reducing that reaction. So if it was a 10, you would have reduced it to a 7 or a 6. And further regulation, breathing, is going to take that down further. This is very powerful here, okay? So I just want to stop and make sure you get this. These 3 steps are very powerful in how you handle these challenging dynamics in the moment. Yes, Barb, thanks for that, the fawn. I really don't want to get into the responses because that's covered in your masterclass and you do it so masterfully. And I want to just focus on the communication piece here. These first 3 are going to get you to the advanced level, but make sure you are in a calm state. The next one is now you can set your communication stance. Of course, you would have prepared, but here you're able to access again your front brain, which is, do I need empathy here? Do I need directness? Do I need to assert a boundary, or do I need to redirect? One thing I will say here, because all this in theory is great, but when you're in that moment, you can't help it. You're kind of in a reactive mode or you are in a defensive mode. Of course, you're going to protect yourself. So one thing that you can always fall back on, and this is very useful, you can always ask questions. This will be a very good technique. If you're unsure in that moment, just pause and ask a question. Or if you don't know how to respond in that moment, you say, could you please repeat that? Can you repeat what you just said? This will buy you a little bit of time. But staying calm, staying collected is key here. And then the last one for E, for poise, is to engage with skill. Now you can ask questions. You can be open-minded. You can practice non-judgment. You can listen. Listening is going to be a key skill here. And again, this links with O, to observe the dynamic. When you see someone who's crazy, who's off the rails, this is going to be your opportunity to really just notice, not to make them wrong, but to observe and see how this is unfolding before your very eyes. You can't do that if you are activated yourself. You can only do this if you are in a calm state. So poise framework, very useful, very easy to remember as well. I want to add a few more key points here to the discipline behind poise. It's not just a framework. It's really a higher level of managing your communications, because first, you're regulating before you respond. You're not letting reaction or urgency be your response. Okay. Number 2 is it allows you to stay curious longer. We want to make sure that you're asking more questions. If you're not sure, continue to ask more questions. What does this look like? Help me understand. Can you please explain? Please tell me more about that. Stay curious. This is going to ensure that the conversation keeps going, but is not going to get derailed because you are in a place of curiosity. Barb and I talk often about this. This is going to be your fallback position. If you're feeling triggered, if you're feeling that you are being cornered, bring out your curiosity hat. And then this third one is you're here to seek understanding, not gain a victory. You're not here to win a point. If you go into a conversation wanting to let the other person know that they're wrong, it's already not going to help. It's not going to help the relationship. You might get that victory, but it's not going to help the cause or resolve the issue. So communicate to gather information. And maybe it's just to gather information for the next conversation. Remember, one conversation at a time. You cannot resolve everything in one conversation. And then address the issue. Come from a place of non-judgment. Do not blame. And name the pattern. Name the behavior, not the person. And then last one is, expect that you might not have anything resolved. Both of you might say, okay, we can't get any further here today. Let's schedule for another time. It doesn't look like we're going to have any agreements today, and be okay with taking it to the next conversation. But at least you would have gathered more information. Okay, so that's poise. Any comments on that? Do you feel that this is useful? Yes? Okay, great, Sarah. Yeah, I really hope that you use poise. And it's very easy to remember. One thing that I want to make sure you take away is that it is a discipline. And poise, it demands that we slow down and we stay curious and choose our response with maturity. And if you are someone who has moments in your past where you regret, you can call on those moments, because this allows you to stay more grounded. And it doesn't put you in a freeze mode as well. This framework requires a leadership mindset, and it's also a core skill within relationship fluency. So I will make sure that you get this in the cheat sheet, and please, I really hope you use the poise framework. Yeah, thank you. It can definitely help build a solution-focused culture if everyone is given this type of framework to work with. And also, it's very helpful, Anthony, which Barb does a lot of work with teams and organizations. They come up with their charter of behaviors that they all agree on. How do we handle conflict? How do we resolve issues? So there's a charter of recommended behaviors. Yeah, thank you. Okay, so this next piece, this final piece, is about, do you engage, redirect, or disengage? And this is where we have a lot of practical communication tools. And I'm going to ask you to have a think about the hot button that it may trigger, and also if this might be useful for you. So we're going to categorize this into the scenarios, the complex dynamics where whether you engage, you redirect, or you just disengage because it's not safe. It's not helpful to continue. So the first is engage, right? How do we get signals that we can engage? This is not about engaging when you're in a collaborative situation, okay? That is just natural. This is when there is conflict. So engage when the issue is clear, the person is still listening, and some directness might move things forward, but there is definitely friction there, and you need to state a position, a limit, or a decision. Okay. All right. So in this situation, this is what they might say. So when you're in a meeting and they say, I disagree with the direction, or that doesn't work for me, that could cause a threat response. So I'm going to ask you to pause for a moment here. Somebody who might say this, what behaviors do you notice? And what hot buttons may be triggered in you? If you could pop in the chat, what do you notice here? What is the driving force behind someone who might say this? Yes, they might also show you closed body language. Yeah, what other behaviors? What's the driving force behind these behaviors? It could be somebody who is just negative, who feels maybe disenchanted. They don't feel, yeah, there's history, I agree, that they feel like it's futile, or they just don't feel supported. There's a number of reasons. And yeah, one of their values is threatened. So true. Something is going on at home. We don't know. Yes, these feel like reasonable questions. Okay, they could be, okay, that's good. If you don't see this as conflict, then you are conflict capable. You would be able to handle this. For some people, I would feel like there's conflict and I would have to step up my game to handle this. But it's also the standards that you have set in your own team. If this is common communication, this is great. It means that there's trust, that you're able to work through conflict, that somebody does not need to step around if they don't agree. Yeah, okay, that's great. So it means that you can move ahead and engage. So these are some phrases you might use. So I'll put some of these here. You can take a screenshot, but as I said, this will all be summarized in a cheat sheet for you. So this is great because you can continue. And while you do not agree, you can make your stance be known. This is what I know. Here's the decision. This is the reasoning behind it, even if you don't agree. I can hear your concern, and this is the direction that we're taking. So that is one perspective. This is how I see it. There are instances where someone is being unreasonable. So they might say something like, this deadline is ridiculous. I'm not doing it. Or you need to change this. This makes no sense. Or that's a terrible decision. Then you can say, remember, pause, regulate, observe, and see what you can observe with your senses about this person. They could be coming from a very different place. So it's not about just having the right thing to say in that moment. It's just observing first. And then when you are in a calmer state, you might say, I see that you feel strongly about it and the deadline still stands. So let's talk about what support or prioritization would help. These are very clever phrases that we could have scripted here, but in that moment, you will not be able to access these phrases if you do not have the first three in poise. But this is good. This phrases to engage means that they're negative, but they're still reachable. And sometimes people might say, this is never going to work. Honestly, I don't see the point. These are the slightly more negative inclined. And then you can ask questions. This is where you can practice curiosity. Okay, so tell me why you don't see it as working. What do you see as the risk? And what would make it more workable for you? And then if you were to improve this, where would you start? So this is a way to have engaging conversations that could lead to the next one. So that's engage. Do you feel that this might be something you could use, these scripts, these phrases? And for how many people is this in your current situation? I'm going to move on to redirect. Okay. So redirect is when the conversation is drifting, when someone is pulling in extra issues, emotions are getting tense, and they're bringing in other issues. And so the real issue is not being discussed. And you need to slow the pace or redirect or narrow the focus. And this is what they might say. Well, this is just what happened last quarter. And another thing, or you always do this. There could be general statements like, that's why nobody trusts leadership. And it's about bringing in additional problems that they may not probably had the chance to voice. So what behaviors do you notice here? What is the driving force behind these statements? And what hot buttons may be triggered? Oh, I'm sorry to hear that. Avoidance, selfishness. Could be they're not making progress. Yeah, they're frustrated. They're not seeing the results. So it feels like it's more work. there's more behind this. There's definitely more to explore here. So it's going to be very hard to get this person to align with your conversation when they are focused on something else. There's more to be said here, and they're defensive. And it doesn't help to put them in their place. It helps to channel it and let them know that you've heard what they said. And here are some phrases that you could use to redirect. So let's slow this down for a moment. What is your concern here? I'm not clear on your intention. So can you just speak more directly to it? And you can see that these phrases are very careful because we're not judging. We're just trying to get some clarity. We're trying to understand their position. And yeah, this is a great phrase. Help me understand what you want me to take from that. Help me understand. Can you tell me more about that? Let's focus on one issue at a time. And if you're dealing with someone who's being unreasonable and from one conversation, they jump to the whole team is a mess. The process is broken. And frankly, leadership has no idea what it's doing. Now, those are very big pieces that they're bringing in. So again, you got to pause, just observe. And the more unreasonable the statement, the more outlandish the statement, the longer you need to pause and just stop for a moment and really look at what's going on, because it can feel like an attack. But if you stop and regulate, you'll see that there is a lot going on for this person. And you can say, okay, it sounds like there are several issues here. I don't know if I can address all that, but right now let's focus on the issue at hand. And then you may have people who are very negative and they generalize. They may say something like, nothing ever changes around here. There's no point even talking about this. So you want to call it out for what it is. And it sounds like you're frustrated. So we can talk about that. And what does a meaningful process look like from your perspective? So I see a comment here. First one is interesting. Unless we learn from history, we're doomed to repeat it. I get that the tone can dictate if it's conflict or not, but the rest, yeah. Yes, it's ouch. So the key here is you are going to be in a much better position to deal with it if you are calm and collected. If you are being defensive, if you are reacting to it, it's not going to help. It's not going to resolve the issue. It's not going to take that conversation to a next more positive conversation. So you can have all the scripts in the world, but if you're not in a regulated place to deliver it with neutrality and without judgment, because when someone feels like they're being judged or if they're mocked, is going to continue to turn into a more difficult conversation. So this one is interesting because redirect is probably the toughest one to master. It is one of the most important advanced communication skills because it stops the conversation from becoming a swamp. It's done in a way that is respectful, professional, and relational. It protects the relationship. Think about these situations where you could really cut off that person and it's going to take a lot longer to rebuild the trust. But right here, if you are able to navigate this, you can still continue to have the next conversation when they're not as triggered. So this is an important one, redirect. And interestingly enough, disengage is actually the easiest of the three, because disengage is a lot easier to spot when someone is just being a little is flying off the handle. So you disengage when it's just not productive, is when the person is flooded, they're combative or disrespectful. Also, when the tone has become unsafe or unworkable, when you're in these situations, you got to get out. And continuing would reward the pattern. You need to break the cycle and you need to put a pause to it. So what they may say is that there's swearing, there's unacceptable language, or you clearly have no idea what you're doing. Whatever, do what you want. Like, these are really immature statements. So I don't need to ask, what behaviors do you notice here? This happens a lot when people are just driven to very primal instincts. And I know Barb is going to cover this because she talks about the psychopaths and the sociopaths and the narcissists. And I just want to jump ahead to the phrases that you could use to disengage. And they, again, the more heated the exchange, the more you need to pause and regulate. This is where you take control. If they're shouting at you, they're saying something that's completely unacceptable, you don't have to take it, but you need to pause. And so that you're not being defensive, or you need to exit if it's unsafe. So I'm going to stop the conversation here. I'm not going to continue while it's in this tone. And I need to pause this conversation to honor my own well-being. So I'm going to pause here for a moment because I realize that I've talked for a long time, and in fact, we're almost out of time. So we have a few more minutes to wrap up. It's a lot of information shared here, and I'm just checking in just to make sure. Have these scripts been helpful? Are you able to use these in your situations? Yeah. Okay, that's great. So we're going to send you the summary sheet and the cheat sheet for this masterclass, and you can refer back to it. Now, I asked you earlier to identify those hot buttons, the ones that you're most triggered by. Those, take out the 2 or 3 that jumped out, and I feel like these are the ones that you want to prioritize. Because if you can master those triggers, you are going to be in far better control of your next interactions that are with difficult people or in those difficult dynamics. What I wish for you one day is you can deal with these situations and they don't trigger you at all. Like, it might require you to take a moment and pause, but you're not going to be flustered for the rest of the day. And that day will come when you work on that in yourself. You cannot change their behavior. You can change the reaction that is in you. So I'm going to wrap up here. I have just a few last slides to share. And we didn't have time to do the case study. So maybe we could do a part 2 where we discuss and apply the tools. So I want to just note that if you want to get a relationship fluency profile, this is the tool that I used to design this workshop. And it's called Lumina Spark. It's a very extensive psychometric assessment that will show what your conflict style is, what your communication patterns are, and it shows when you are regulated, when you are professional, and when you're under stress, how this shows up. Now, there is a cost behind this profile, but if you want the free version, just scan this code. It's Lumina Spark. You answer about 12 questions and you'll get a free splash like this on the phone. And then we can start with that. I'm more than happy to talk to you about the free version because it'll give an indication of, like, the Myers-Briggs, the 8 personality styles, what your conflict style is and your communication patterns. And then I want to let you know that you can book Barb for a complimentary session. And you could also book me. Our website is down. I'm not able to, for whatever reason, book. So this is my separate Calendly link. So if you get your free splash and you want to have a debrief on what your profile is, I would be so happy to talk to you about it, because it would also help me to understand if the content that I'm sharing here today is practical and useful. I have limited time to share all of this, and I want to know how we can make it more meaningful for you. So this would really help me if you book a session. And it's free, it's complimentary, there's no obligation, no selling, okay? I want to emphasize that. And if you gained some insights from our session today, please give us a Google review. Your reviews are so helpful because they allow people to see that these are meaningful sessions, and or give us a feedback that's specific to our team. So
Cecilia, Hannah's just asked, can you please go back to the free code screen? I think that's
yes,
for the Lumina Splash.
that's for the Lumina Splash. Yes, you can get a free personality assessment with Lumina. And I use Lumina Spark extensively for a lot of my training because for team dysfunctions, it's very useful to have some data to work with. For people who have issues with different personalities, if we look at our reports, then it takes the heat out of the finger pointing. We're looking at concrete data, and there's can be a lot more collaboration and understanding when we're working with our profiles. Okay, so I've got this. And now we're gonna get to our wheel. So we're gonna be giving away this book, and I'm gonna stop share and let Barb take over.
Awesome. All right. Hang on 2 secs. I'm moving all my things around so I can do that. Okie dokie, got the wheel going. I'm going to share my screen and make sure I've got the sound going because that's the really cool part. This is my favorite part. Okay, I'm going to share my
I know you love
screen.
the wheel, Barb.
Yeah, I do. All right, we ready? Here we go. Ah, Heather! Woohoo!
Heather, congratulations. You're the winner.
All right,
Okay,
stop sharing.
we'll mail this to you. I'll have to mail it to you from here. I believe we have your address because Heather, you were the winner of another book. Yeah, okay.
Oh, she's cleaning up. Heather, is this your second win? Wow.
So you have my address, but I can email it anyway.
All right.
We'll go ahead and send it to you.
Thank you,
So
thank you, thank you.
we have 2 minutes remaining. I'm going to stop the recording. And if anyone wants to ask questions, I'm happy to stay behind. And I want to stop the recording so that, let's see, where is the recording? Stop recording.